Okay, after generating the RGB mask and making sure that the meshes all have the same second UV channel, it's about time to go and start the layering inside master material. So let's copy them all and bring them down. And I'm doing this because I really do not want to create the whole thing from scratch. I'm using the material function that we created, and we're using these ones as well. But remember, we need to rename this, because if we do not rename this, we are not getting anything inside material instance. So first, let's go and do a rename on these and put underscore 2 after all of them. And that way they become unique. So let me copy this underscore 2, and then I'm going to copy that after the name of all of these to make sure that they are unique. And after making sure that they are unique, then we are going to change the group as well. But because if we change the group on here without renaming it, it's going to, for example, in case of this blue base color tint, it's going to change the group of this one as well. So we're going to make sure that before doing anything in here, we create a naming for them. So I'm going to add underscore 2 to indicate that this belongs to the second material. So let's put underscore 2, and that's an easy fix. It's about copy and pasting things, nothing more than that. Okay, and we have reached the end. So now we are left remaining with these, and now let's take these and we're going to bring them into the texture 02, and this one as well. So texture 02 as well, but for case of sort priority, we are not going to do anything because they are going to be grouped under texture 2, and the sort priority, if you remember, we fixed the sort priority on this and we have no problem really in terms of sort priority. So let's save this. We're gonna copy this one more time or a couple of more times depending on how much material we're going to create for each mesh. So I believe 2, 3, or 4 is enough. So let's copy this. And again in here, I'm going to add a underscore 3 before the 2. So, or let me delete this. I can delete it because I can take this one and rename it. It's a lot easier than cleaning the 2 and replacing it with 3. This is untouched, so we only need to put underscore 3 after all of them. And the more material layers you add, the more you are going to really spend in terms of shader cost and material complexity. So you should have that in mind also if you want to really be a bit mindful of the performance. You really do not want to do a lot of layering, just something to represent the work. Okay, Blender has a batch rename and we use that, and I hope there's something like that in Unreal to be able to batch rename some of these nodes. So this one as well, and for now I believe there's just one more remaining. Okay, and let's bring this one down also, and instead of 3, let's add 4. And when we made sure that the naming is alright, we go and change the grouping as well. And as the sort priority, it's alright. And all of them are going to be grouped together perfectly without any problem really. So roughness min, and there are some more remaining. And we're going to use the mask that we created to differentiate between the parts of the materials. And for now we are using materials from Unreal Engine itself, and then when we made sure that everything is working all right and perfect, we alter some materials and replace them. So we have these ready, and now there's the grouping remaining. So these all belong to the texture set 2, and now let's take these all and place them in texture 3, create a category for them, and for the textures, let's also put them in texture 3 category. And these are remaining, group them under texture 4 category, and these textures as well. Okay, we are done. And now let's hit a save to see if they show up in material instance or not. I'm not really sure if they do. No, they should be connected to be shown there. So let's bring a node to mix between these material functions. And that node is material layer blend. And these are the different layer blends that we can use. And one that I'm going to use is material layer blend standard. And this is great. It takes a base material, which is the material underneath, and takes a material that appears at the top and something for alpha in case it's the RGB mask that we baked. And one more important thing is that we should go here, and for the textures, let's select each texture, for example this one, and set the sampler source to shared wrap. And this makes sure that we can use more than 16 textures in the shader. So this is an easy fix. We should do this on all of our textures, texture samplers, because we are going to use a lot of textures, and it's a good thing to set these all on texture shared wrap so that nothing really happens. So this is fine. And now let's put the results in here into the base, and put the results of this one into the top, and drag the blended material as the result. Now we need to put something for the alpha, and that alpha is going to be RGB mask, which is the compression mode of mask. Of course, I'm going to use one of these. So let's drag in the texture, and in this texture I'm going to use this texture arm, and set the source for this one also to shared wrap. Right click on it, convert it into parameter, and let's call this one RGB mask, and put it into RGB masking folder. And for the set priority, set it to 0 so that it always stay on top. So we're not gonna use this as it is. We are gonna add some math to make sure that we can control each channel individually. So for the red one, let's drag and add this really we can add or subtract from the mask. If we create a positive value, we are adding to the mask and making the effect stronger, and if we go negative, we really subtract from it. And this add does the job of the add and subtract perfectly for us. And after this, I'm going to add a multiply, and this multiply is perfect for adding contrast. So let's add a couple of scalar parameters and call this one red RGB strength, and call this one red RGB contrast. Okay, for add, I'm not really adding anything to it. I'm going to default it to 0, but for multiply, to default it 0, to default it as the mask itself, you have to put this one in here to make sure that it's the default. So let's drag this one out, and always when creating masking like this, be sure to drag a clamp node in, and this clamp node clamps the value between 0 and 1 and makes sure that nothing crazy happens. And if we do that without this, we're really getting all sorts of troubles when going over 0 to 1. So, and there's a node that is called saturate node, and this saturate node is basically the clamp 0 and 1, but this one is by default 0 and 1, but in this one you can input value, but since we are going to make sure that every value is between 0 and 1, we are not going to change anything in here, we can simply drag this one out and replace it with this. It's good to use this saturate if you're only staying between 0 and 1 and not using anything, but you can customize this. For example, set it to be between 0.5 and 1. So we're not going to do that. This saturate node is a free node of the clamp, and you really can use that to imprison the value between 0 and 1 to make sure that it doesn't go beyond. So let's go in the shader editor and test some things out. Okay, now the result is messed up and we need to fix some things. Okay, and we are going to fix it per static mesh. For example, for this one, we are going to create a separate material instance. So I have this spark and these planks, which were good for initial usages when we had no layering. But now I'm going to take an instance from these, not from that itself, because these have some textures in it and some parameters fixed. I'm not going to take directly from this one because we have now really no time to take these and make them first. So I'm going to take from these that we have some things fixed in there. So let's take from the bark or planks. Let's take from planks, and we should have in mind that we really should not change these in any condition. We should not change these, because if we change these, we are getting a lot of changes in those as well. So for the plank, let's drag an instance. I'm going to call it MI underscore path walkway underscore, for example, 4 by 4, and I'm going to use it on this dock 4 by 4. So let's pick this one, and for the plank, let me search for path walkway 4 by 4, and now we need to do some things to make this fixed. Okay, this material has been fixed, and detail normal and anything that we set is in its place, but we need to put these two in this RGB masking as well. So let's go, and from Unreal Textures, bring something in here and replace it with these textures. So let's go, and from textures, from a starter content textures, bring something out, bring some of these, and later on we'll use them and change them, of course. Let me take this drag it in here and take its normal as well. And you see it has overwritten the whole material, which we don't want really. So let's bring this one. And for RGB mask, we need to pick the RGB mask that is for this one. If you remember, was path, walkway, or walkway. Yeah, this one. We created that. And now this is the mask driving for us. But one thing that we didn't do, and I'm happy that it happened, is that on this RGB mask, if we do not set it to use the second UV channel, it's by default using the first UV channel. And for setting that to use the second UV channel, we need to go to the texture coordinates, bring this node out, and by default you see the coordinate index is 0, and this 0 is the default one which we used for the color, and 1 is going to be the second one. It instead of using from 1, 2, 3 and go on, it starts with 0. So the second one is 1 in here. Have that in mind. So now let's hit save. And now you see the effect has been placed here perfectly on these occlusion areas. And really I'm happy with it and how much we have been able to add only by using a single mask. So let me disable the real time to save some performance and bring this master material in. So for this master material, if we wanted to, for example, and I told you these textures are going to be really temporarily and we'll change them later on. But for now, let's go and put these, let me hide this, put these two in RGB masking. And for the sort priority, let's set them to 1 so that they appear beneath this RGB mask. So they are here as well. Let me see what I can do with this mask. I can really decrease the effect or even turn it off if I don't want to. And I can go beyond as well. You see, it goes beyond the borders as well. So, and now we have clamped this one and it's not going beyond 0 and 1 and it always stays consistent. Okay, for the contrast, excuse me, I was manipulating the contrast, excuse me, I was doing wrong. Yeah, so for the strength I can make it all the way top to top, or I can shrink it down. You see how beautifully it starts to shrink down and go away. You see these leakage areas, and if I'm going to add a bit of contrast, I add the contrast using this slider. So let's go in here, and instead of that, let's put the strength first and put this one in the second one so that I have the strength first and the contrast the second, so that I can use them better without any problems. So now that I have the strength, I can turn it on and off. Or if I'm not happy with the effect, I can really turn it off perfectly without any problem. And if I'm going to add to it, I can. Okay, this is good for the first layer. And for the second layer, let's again copy this And the reason that we are not getting any errors or something in these is because this saturate node, and this saturate node clamps the values between 0 and 1 and makes sure that really nothing unexpected happens. So I'm going to plug the result of this mix into the base material and its result into the material output. And I'm going to take the result of this one and bring it up in this top material. And for the alpha, now I'm going to use the green channel. And I'm going to use these ones and plug the green channel in here. And for this one, I'm going to, instead of using red, I'm going to write green. And for this one as well. So sort priority of this one 3, sort priority of this one 4. And the saturate node, it does pretty good as well. Let's connect this and save it. And now let's see what there is to fix. The controls have been added, and now we need to go in here, and the texture set settings as well are in here pretty happy. I'm not going to use the arm texture because Unreal textures do not have it. Let's use this and use this normal map in here as well. Okay, and this does some overall noise damage to our texture. And we can come into the smart material, this material instance that we created, and do all sorts of crazy things with it. For example, let's go and change the noise to something, and you see here where have been affected. So let's leave it be, and let's go plug the last one. Okay, in here let's copy this and paste it, put the result in here, and put the result of this one into the base. And the last material also is going to top. So this one is the result, and I'm going to copy this, bring it down, bring the B in here, and call this blue, and rename it blue in here as well. Sort priority of this one to 5 and this one to 6, and drag the saturate node into the alpha of this. Okay, done. We have done the material creation inside the master material, and now what we have done left is to go and make sure that all of them use the correct material instance that we create for them. We can really go and close out the material, master material, because we really do not need it. So let's bring the material on this, and I'm only going to activate the normal and the roughness of it. So let's put this one in and the normal. So as you know, these are temporarily and we're not going to use them really. I'm going to add them just for seeing what the effect is going to be. So this is going to be some general mask, some general dirt. And let's see the master material of this, material instance. Yeah, this have been added in here as well. We have now the strength and contrast for RG and B of every of them, which is fine. Now let's go add the blue. You see, it has completely done that for us. So let's make it so contrasty. It's good for adding some water swatches or dirt swatches or things like that. And for now, I can really turn this off if I'm not happy with the effect. You really do not have to do. So now that we have created this first material instance, it's time that we go and create other material instances as well. The only thing that we have to do is plugging the respective RGB channel. We really do not need to do anything about this, and plug some basic textures in here to make sure that the masking and everything is working all right, just like this one. And later on, we will create some materials to be placed on these as well. So there's one more thing that we need to do is creating a master material for this part as well, so that it uses the noises that we generated inside Substance to derive the information. So I'm going to go to the materials, and from this one, from this particular instance that we manipulated, I'm going to take an instance. So take an instance from this and call it bark after all of that. And let's select it and go in here and paste that in. Now you see it's using the information, but for the bark, we're going to replace these textures with the bark one instead of the plank. And you have to do this fix on these ones that use two material instances, two material slots. So let's go and select bark in here and bark diffuse and bark normal and hit save. And now in here you see all of the information that we added is present in here as well. And because these two share the same second UV, we really have to do this fix in order to make that working. So let's go and see the effect on this. And it's alright. And it's, by looking at it, really makes me think of a snow being on top of these woods. Really great effects, and later on, of course, we will change it. But for now, let's make sure that we take care of all of these as well. Okay, to make it a bit easier on us, I'm going to select these two, and from now on take material instances from this, because this is what holds the planks material, and this one holds the bark material instead of using these, because we have done some manipulation on this as well, such as setting up these textures, and I'm not really going to do this again. So I'm going to take the material instances from this. So let me rename this one to my underscore planks name was repetitive, my underscore planks underscore edited, so that I know we're gonna do this with this. Okay, and this one my underscore barks, and from now on I'm going to take instances from this, but to make them even more a lot better, I'm going to this, and I'm going to replace arm H texture with it, and for this one as well, because I want this one to be neutral, not having any information. So everything ruined for this, and we're gonna fix it, and that's an easy fix. So let's take for this, let's look at the name, and in the material section now, let's take an instance from this, for example, this edited, and in the last of it, I'm going to add the name of the static mesh that uses this. So let me take an instance from this. Okay, and now let's select this and go into the static mesh view. And now we have this one ready. And also this one, the dock. And now what we're going to do is going for the 4x4 dock mask. No, this one is wrong. Let's go for walkway. Yeah, this one was the correct one, and you see taking effect here. Okay, and this one as well. Let's go for walkway as the mask, and it corrected perfectly. Okay, we took care of this one, and now we're going to do the rest, and it's going to save us time in selecting textures and things, because I really do not want to go and select a lot of textures. So let's take from this one. Let's see what we are going to do. I'm going to go for this 3x2 piece in here. Okay, let's select the name, and in the materials tab, I'm going to take an instance from this and copy the name. And all you need to do in this case is selecting RGB mask representative for every text. So let's bring this to up. And for this arm texture, again, I'm going to use that walkway, and for this one as well. Okay, everything saved. And now let's go to a static mesh editor. And in here, this 3x2 walkway, it does. And this one, 3x2, yeah, this one does as well. And this one was the error area in Substance, and I told you it's on the mask area, and it's not really a problem. It's like wood being chipped off or something. So I'm not really going to do anything with it. So let's go for this one. Let's copy the name. Okay, and bring the materials up. And I'm going to take from this one. Take an instance from this. And in the end, copy the name of that. And again, bring these two. And for the arm texture, I'm going to use that walkway, because these belong to the same kit, and we have to use that always. So let's go to static mesh editor, and in this material view, let's pick the 6x6 piece. Okay, and our book as well, let's pick this 6x6 piece. Okay, this is doing well as well. So let's go see what has happened on the dock. You see a lot of brokening and dirt, and a lot of things are happening in here for free, really without any efforts. And later on, when we made sure that everything is working all right, we create some materials for these as well. For example, on these occluded area, it's perfect for adding some chipped wood material to make the effect that these places have been chipped off or something like that. Okay, now let's go for these. Let's start with this one. Take the name, and this one only uses one material, which is the bark. So I'm going to take from the bark edited. Okay, and let's select the texture for that. It was, I believe, 2 by 2. And let's bring this one, bark. It's this. Yeah, it's working. And it was my mistake to name this 2 by 2. It's not 2 by 2, it's 3 by 3. And of course, I chose the wrong material. Let's pick up the correct one. Yeah, this is the correct material. And for the name, I should have named this one 3 by 2, not 2 by 2. It's not a huge mistake, I can live with that. And let's save. See this one being affected also. And do not really panic if the effect is so strong for now. We're going to make it correct later on. So for this one as well, let's copy the name. And from here, bring the material. It uses the bark, so let's use this bark edited and paste the name in the end of that. So for arm texture, I'm going to use 4 by 4. Hit OK. And in here in this static mesh editor, let's bring and select this 4 by 4 piece in here, which is responsible for this. And look at the dirt and occlusion. Yeah, they have been pasted on the correct area. So this one fixed as well. And now this one is the last one of this kind, which is using the bark material. So let's pick up the name and bring the bark material and take an instance from this and give it the name and bring 6 by 6. Yeah, this one is. So let's hit save and go into a static mesh editor and bring this 6 by 6. I believe we should have selected this one. So let's visualize that. No, this is not. This is one of the plank materials. So let's select that by hand. Okay, and this one is done. You see all of the dirt being occluded in these areas. Okay, I'm happy with this. And we have now just one material left and 6 pieces, and that's easy to fix. Okay, let's select these because all of these handle pieces use the same material and same texture set. We have an easy time assigning them. So let's select this one, and for this one let's call it fences and copy the name. No, I should have taken the instance from this instead. Fences, and now in here bring the fence sRGB mask. Okay, and now let's go to static mesh editors, and all of these need to have the fence material. Okay, it's working fine. You see the occlusion area is all right. And let's copy this and paste it into here as well to make sure that all of them use the same texture. Okay, this is the last of them, and we're technically finished creating the dirt mask for all of these as well. So you see how more it has added contribution to all of the meshes, although we have not changed anything. And we are going to create some textures and replace with these, and also manipulate the mask to create an effect as well. So now it's all about manipulating the masks. Let's take this one. I believe the overall dirt is too heavy on this. Let's go and activate the controls and try to bring the effect down a bit. Let's bring the strength of this down. You only want some subtle things, not so strong. Okay, this is doing alright on this. Let's visit other areas as well. Let's see what the green does. Green adds overall dirt on top of this, which is alright. I only want a bit of it, and of course a lot of contrast. It's good for adding those kinds of wood chippingness and adding a lot of, you know, swatches to make this look less repetitive. You see how it has beautifully contributed to the mix. And now let's see what the blue mask does. Let's bring the strength up. And this is some overall dirt that later on we will generate. So for now, I'm really not caring too much about this. You see how it has broken and added a lot of non-repetitive elements to the planks. And this is the beauty of the method that we are taking. So for this one as well, I feel like it's overall a bit too strong. Let me manipulate the controls, bring this occlusion dirt and make it a bit contrasty. And of course, let's give it a bit of overall dirt. Let's bring the overall dirt down a bit and give it a lot of contrast. And bring the overall dirt down. I want to give it only some wood chippingness. Okay, and the blue, I'm not doing anything with it. So let's take this, and I believe I can go in here safely. It's in X. Let's put the -1 in here and activate a snapping. And you see how beautifully it really broke the repetition out of that. So let's take this one, repeat it, rotate for 180 degrees, bring it in here, and let's look at it. There's a butterfly effect happening in here, which I'm not happy with. So let's, in -X, Okay, and the butterfly effect is happening here, and I really do not care for now. Let's go for this, and this is not going to be seen so much, so I'm not really taking so much care for it. I'm only looking for areas where I can improve. For example, this area. This 6 by 6 area needs some manipulation. Let's take it and bring it up into the air so that we can see a lot better, and then later on we delete it. So let's bring the strength of that down and give it a bit of contrast. And of course, give it a total wood breakup effect. And on the blue, let's see. No, I'm not really going to do anything with the blue. And let's delete this one because the effect has been done in here. And you see it's a lot more subtler than what was before. Okay, now that I'm looking at the dog, I'm really happy with it and how it's coming along. You saw how we really created some kits and only some individual planks and barks, and from those planks and barks, using the blacksmith mentality, we created a whole dog using only some repetitive kits and used some techniques to hide that repetition as well. Now you have the tools, knowledge, and mentality to create a whole world from single kits using modularity. So for now, I feel like I can create a broken house in here using the same mentality and using the same kits that we have created. Or I can call the chapter 2 done and go for these areas and flesh these areas out to make them updated and look beautiful as well. So see you in the next chapter.